last week I did a little video where I just kind of talked about like the prototype and a little bit about the app and like being able to search for tech podcasts by topic. But this week it's really changed a lot. Like you in particular, like really put a lot of time in and actually rewrote the entire website over from like static HTML over to React with stylized components. And I don't remember how we actually ended up with React. Was there something specific about it?
React is what I am used to doing, and I think I said we should go with what we're comfortable with. And I mean, and any option was good. Vue, maybe not Angular for something like this, right? That would be overkill,
right?
For sure. But React was, I think the way you can work with components, right? It's a great choice. And I had some tips from Matt as well about how to use Redux with less boilerplate as well, and that was it's working out really well.
Yeah, it's really awesome. For me, you're kind of looking at it after doing like the kind of prototype in original JavaScript. I was really confused as to like where kind of the code happened. Like it was easy to see at the component level, like, oh, this is how it kind of breaks down. But when it came to actually like doing a feature or something, like I really had to kind of change how I thought about the application. And now that I'm starting to get it and learning a little bit more about React, like it's just beautiful how it works.
You get to go really fast and iterate and go. I mean, you don't care about typing at this stage. So you go, okay, I know I'm grabbing text. Let's just put this text here. Let's do that. And let's add some CSS in there, style things. And yeah, you really get to just have a thought and then run through it and then see it working in like 5 minutes. It's really cool.
Yeah, and got a lot of kind of tips and help and commits and advice from like from you, from Mads, Vladimir, Arlene. And I think it's really looking great. Do you want to kind of click through like a kind of normal workflow?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the main page now. Perhaps in the future we will add some, we'll populate this with some awesome suggestions. But in the meantime, you get, if there's no episodes now, this used to be where the search was. Instead, this is now where the playlist will stay, or the queue. So you can now search for things, for example, coding blocks, of course.
Hey.
And there we go.
It's funny that we're not at the top because it doesn't include the title that it searches.
No, yeah, I was going to say, like, why is that the cynical developer first? Anyway, let's look at this one. What is supple design? So now we get to click somewhere and it will highlight whichever podcast is playing right now. And as soon as we click something, it actually starts playing. I don't know if you can hear it from your end, but it does.
Oh, cool.
Now we have playlist item, so we can add things to our playlist item. You can see this is a modal now, the search, so you can go up and down, and in the background you can sort of see there's a little bit transparent. You can see playlist items being added, and as I switch through them, you can see that it's also changing in the back, so everything is linked together through the magic of data. And now if we go back here, this is now our main view, and that's the playlist view. And
I like it's highlighted still, like whatever was playing.
Absolutely, yeah. So whatever's playing, it will know. And if it matches the audio URL, it will straight away highlight that, wherever it is. If it's in the search, if it's in the playlist. So,
I might have broken something. I don't know if you saw some of the code that I checked in, but it does a little swap for a proxy. If it sees the HTTP link, it'll try to go to a proxy to get it. And but I think where I change it pretty far down, so I think like when it's trying to check and see if it's that audio URL, I think it might not match for those guys that are proxy.
Yeah, but it seems to be working fine. There you go.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and you can there you go. You can delete things, and once you start listening to the queue now, the way it works is it will actually jump off to the next item in the queue, and that item will be removed from the playlist. So once you've heard the podcast, it will not just be removed.
That's fantastic. And you got this stuff in here like lightning fast. I feel like we would talk about it and I would like go walk the dog and I'd come back and you'd be like, here's a video. Like, what? Yeah,
I was feeling pretty inspired today. And like you said, being able to just roll with just JavaScript and Redux and that immutability and just thinking about data and how you present that data instead of having to work with a huge framework and inject things and do all this stuff. It's just, I had a thought and I was like, okay, what kind of data do I need for this? Okay, I want to make a playlist. The playlist is just an array. Okay, so let's put stuff in this array and now let's display this array in this way and let's reuse the episode components. The components are really important for this as well. Because if you look at the playlist now, this has episodes. And if I type something and I search for it, this has episodes as well, and I'm essentially reusing the same component, maybe making them a little bit smaller, then changing this button here and there, but you get to reuse a lot of code. So maybe adding a feature can be actually 10 lines of code.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And I see the code that you do. Like, I'll think about something, and then in the meantime, you go and like do that and 3 other things. And I'll come back, I'll like look how you did it, and I'm still very used to kind of thinking very procedurally. So I think about like kind of starting at the top of my feature or the top of my data and like manipulating it, and then I'll see how you did it, and you'll kind of you'll do like a little bit of work in the actual component itself for kind of displaying it, but then you'll have the model kind of just say what it's doing, and the rest just kind of magically happens. So like when I see the code instantly, I'm like, oh, of course. And then when I go to think to do it, like I know that I have a lot more to really to learn. So it's really cool, and it's really cool to see just how you work and how you think about it.
It took me a little while to get that mental shift, right? And now, like, I know that the model is where all the data is, and I just work with that data, and I have methods that modify that data. We have state for the app, and then for the others, I just care about the view, right? So it's about being able to separate those concerns, right? And it's quite declarative as well. Like, I want to do this to my data, fine, and then the view will just take care of itself, kind of. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm impressed. So, what do you think about the name QIT?
I like it, and I like it even more now that we are queuing things.
Yeah,
it makes even more sense. Yeah,
I don't love it, but I don't know how to name stuff, and so if you think of something else, just let me know.
I think it's a great working title, and maybe even the final title. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like the more we keep calling it that, like the harder it is to change. So I'm trying to be careful with it.
And I think you solved it with the little Q being the magnifying glass.
Oh yeah, you sent me the one with that made it really obvious it was a magnifying glass. Like I threw that in there, so if you pull master now, it'll have that in there on like some of the icons.
Cool. I guess we need to put that here and to replace the logo with that.
Yeah, I thought about doing that. I hate adding images though. I always feel like I'm slowing it down or something. But I ran Lighthouse on it, and it's still like performing at like 94% or something crazy.
Yeah, and still make a couple of images. And this image is going to be maybe 10 kilobytes.
Yeah.
Most.
Yep. So let's see what else. We got it hosted up on qit.cloud now, which solved a couple problems, but it did also open up some problems that we ran that we mentioned the proxy issue, where because it's on HTTPS, which Google wants, you can't request HTTP links, and so we had to set something up.
Mixed content, not good. Yeah.
And it makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah.
And actually, Apple just like 2 days ago, they issued some advice for podcast people saying you should all be switching to HTTPS soon because we're going to stop accepting feeds that aren't. So that's kind of.
But there's no excuse anymore, right? I mean, you have free certificates being thrown out. So what's the excuse to not secure data now? It's like people are being more and more malicious, and you have GDPR and all kinds of like regulation and compliance. You might as well just be responsible about it. Makes sense.
And some other little fixes I did too. You see how like Talk Python to Me has that long name. They've got like the SEO, like Python conversations for passionate developers. I added a little field in the actual feed aggregator that will kind of let you specify a name. So I'll just call that Talk Python to Me, so it's not kind of competing with the episodes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Otherwise, there's a lot of real estate there being occupied by this.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing a regular expression on that same line too. So we could say like certain podcasts like this one that's got pound 117. I don't think it really matters to the listener that it's 117. But both of those kind of weird, like because you're kind of changing someone else's content, so it's a little bit kind of weird. But
at the same time, you might want to know which episode number it is, right? Because, for example, when I'm listening to coding blogs, I start to sort them and go up and down, and I say, okay, I was on episode like 69, so now I need to go up to 70 and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. And it's good to know if you're on like episode 2 of something that maybe it's going to be a little bit rougher than usual.
Absolutely. I've seen some, especially YouTube videos, that when you see like episode 100, it looks amazing. If you go back to episode 1, it's like, wow, what's this?
Yeah.
but people need to practice, right, to polish that.
That's right. And I think actually, from like a DevOps perspective, it's rolling really well. Like Netlify is automatically publishing whenever master gets updated. I've got the name hooked up there now. I've got the Let's Encrypt certificate, so that's all been good. I am having a little bit of problem with the podcast feed loader and the Azure function. It doesn't look like it's running correctly very well, so I need to kind of take a look at Azure and see what that's like, but not too big of a deal.
I think that's the main benefit of, I mean, having cross browsers, like having to build just one website and get it working everywhere is like one of the most, like the hugest benefits. But also the fact that this is just a static website now, and you can just put it on a CDN, and you just get concurrency, you get everything, for free almost. It's amazing.
Yeah. So they're like, hits Hacker News tomorrow and goes nuts, don't have to worry about, crashing and dying.
Yeah, and this is definitely not going to be the bottleneck for sure.
So as for like what's next coming up, I think the thing I kind of was thinking about was basically just trying to get more people to actually use it, see what they have to say, like what are they getting confused about. But I think like you really like filled in like all the features I'd been kind of imagining. Is there anything else that you kind of think is like majorly missing from this?
I was surprised to see like as I was working through it, I didn't realize, but now that I look back, it's like, wow, it's pretty much an MVP at this point. It's got everything. Like, it's nice. I think it's fully working. I mean, it's definitely at the stage where you can share it and people can use it and actually get some real benefit out of the app, I think. And we can get some real feedback from real users. And I think that's going to really matter. There's no point in overdoing things and then finding that maybe that's not what people wanted. So this is a good pivotal stage to start like getting data and using that data to iterate.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, it just so happens that we know a bunch of programmers who also listen to podcast. So hopefully we'll be able to get some feedback.
You have the perfect target audience for this.
Yep. I want to do a lot of work on the kind of README just to make it like really apparent, like how you can kind of work and make sure it works on everybody's computer. So it's really easy. That's
one thing we need to work on. Documentation, not that much because it's quite simple at the moment, but testing as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jest and Enzyme, so I started looking at that a little bit. I got a little bit confused just because like it looks like it's really based around the component, which makes sense for React. But like I am still figuring out really what components mean, so it was hard for me to kind of like just jump in and write my first test.
Yeah, I mean, and you have different ways with Enzyme. What it allows you to do is to virtually mount that component. So you don't need a browser, you don't need anything. It's just like the component live, but it's not. And you can mount it shallow, which means it will only render that component, or you can give it a full mount, which means it will render the whole chain. So if it has any components within, it will render those as well. So
that's cool.
You play around with it a little bit, but you will notice that a lot of the time when you do like small unit testing for the low level components, you just do a shallow render, and that you just have access to that tiny component, and you just want to know like I click it and the click is accepted or something happens, right? And it becomes fairly easy to start writing tests.
Oh, it's really exciting. And I know I wrote a couple tests for the feed loader, and so it's been really nice when I want to add a little feature like the podcast title thing. It's really easy for me to just run the test and like, no, I'm not going to break anything. I still break stuff though.
But if it breaks, you know what broke, and you have an idea of how to go about fixing it.
Yep. And, I noticed you hooked up a linter in the website. So I was going to try and use the same linter over on the podcast feed loader. I haven't looked at setting that up yet, but I think that makes sense.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, if we have one style guide, I guess we apply it everywhere, and that standard style guide is pretty good. And that tool that it comes with, you can do standard _ fix, and it will actually go through and apply all the changes for you. So you almost don't need to worry about it.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Well, I think this week, I mean, we kind of mentioned like, so gonna focus on getting feedback, and I'm gonna like work on some of the stability stuff, like so getting some tests in there. I want to hook up like Travis CI, so it'll actually like run the tests on build and stuff like that. And I think it's looking pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't leave testing to just humans, because then we forget. Let's automate as much as we can of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of nice to work on a side project because you kind of get to do all the stuff like, like it's kind of like the dream stuff. It's like you can write as many tests as you want, you can refactor as much as you want, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, and I almost felt a little bit like embarrassed too, because I was going so fast and adding things as they came to my mind. I was like, is he going to be okay with this thing? Are people going to like this? It's like, but it came out fine. I think it came out really.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything can be iterated on. Like I think that's a really great way of what you call it. What Mark Zuckerberg says, boot fast and break things. Like there's some stuff out there. Like there's definitely things that you threw out there, like the ideas you had that I like totally I didn't even understand what you were saying, and then I saw. I'm like, oh, of course. And so that makes sense. Anything can be iterated on. If we throw something out there and a week later we figure out, everybody hates it, and we just change it.
Well, and also I made some. You can see it, can you? No, it's very white.
Mm-hmm.
Let me lower the. maybe like that. Can you see it now?
Yep, a little bit. Can't
That's a
really
bit
read the
better, I
text
guess.
though.
No. So I made it more responsive, and also I wanted to show that the player has the native player on iOS as well. And if you choose an episode, this is something really awesome. I think you can search. You can select an episode, and it starts playing. Takes a little bit longer for some reason to load on a mobile device.
Mm-hmm.
And start playing, but once it starts playing, let me see. Didn't think this through. Okay, there you go. So it starts playing.
Reached a major milestone, like it's 2.0 release.
And if I go back home,
Yep.
it's actually playing in the background. Everything's working fine. And now I guess we can also install it as an icon on the home screen.
Yep. Yeah, those are the first two things I did. And it's been nice is like, as I've been working on this, I kind of put a prototype up and like hit play on PWA. And so I started learning more about progressive web apps as I was working on it.
It's pretty awesome. It's really exciting. Like we were talking about this before, right? That we're gearing towards this future when you can focus on the product itself, and you can sort of leave DevOps almost behind because you give that to AWS or Azure or whatever, and really you don't even need to build 3 websites, like one for iOS, one for Android, and one for the web. You just focus on the web, and it will just magically work everywhere as long as you maybe make it responsive. I guess that's the only thing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's impressive. I'm having fun, lots of fun.
Oh man, well me too. And thank you for you're basically you built the podcast app that I always wanted. So that's awesome.
And I think we're gonna keep going. Absolutely, I can see little things that we can add, but I'm still a bit blown away about the fact that we can actually just have something already that we can share, and it works fine, and it went so fast. I'm happy with it.